Okay, so now we're starting on our last problem of our Kahoot quiz, and it says, if Lane had 6 candy bars and Haley has 3 candy bars, how many candy bars do the two of them have all together? So you guys can start your addition.
6 plus 3 equals...
Do it in your head.
9.
Correct. Okay, so now that you have finished that one, we can go ahead and review this. So the first question says, if Tommy has 3 apples and Jane had 1, how many apples do they have all together?
We got 4.
Correct. And number 2, if Doug had 2 pairs and Libby only had 1 pair, how many do the two of them have all together?
We got 3.
Right. Number 3 asks, if Jake has 5 balls and Kate has 2, how many balls do Jake and Kate have all together?
We got 7.
Right. Number 4 asks, if Katie has 4 cookies and Jim has 5 cookies, how many cookies do they have all together?
We got 9.
Right. And we already went over number 5, and all of you should have gotten 9 again. So, with our Kahoot quiz being done, we can go ahead and start in on talking about what we can do to make this a little bit easier. Something that a lot of people do while doing word story problems is they draw something to represent the objects being talked about. So you can draw some sort of shape to represent what the object is being talked about. So let's do that again with number 1 in the Kahoot quiz. So if Tommy had 3 apples, how many little circles or something are you going to draw?
3.
And Jane had 1, so you can draw 1 for her. How many do they have all together? So you should be drawing 3 on Tommy's side and 1 on Jane's side. And you can put a T above the 1 for Tommy and a J above the 1 for Jane. That way you know whose side it's on. And then you can just count all of the little circles or objects that you drew all together, and that's an easier way for the addition to happen. So let's try that again with number 2. If Doug had 2 pairs and Libby had 1, how many pairs do they have all together? Well, how many pairs would you draw under Doug's name?
2.
And how many would you draw under Libby's?
1.
Correct. So, as we know, they have 3 pairs all together. And as you're counting your objects, you can kind of put a little tick mark in them. That way you know that you've counted them already. So let's try it with number 3. Jake has 5 balls and Kate has 2. So who has 5 balls?
Jake.
Right. And Kate has 2. So you'll draw 5 under Jake's name and 2 under Kate's name. And we know that they have 7 altogether. And number 4, if Katie has 4 cookies and Jim has 5, so how many go under Jim's name?
5.
And how many go under Katie's?
4.
And we know that they get 9. And lastly, number 5, if Lane has 6 candy bars and Haley has 3, how many do they have in all? You can draw your candy bars under Lane and Haley's names. So now that we know we can draw shapes to make these word story problems easier, these are going to get a little harder. So for your homework, we're gonna go over a few of them here in class. That way if you have questions, you can ask. And they will be up on this Word document and you can just read them off of the whiteboard. So we're gonna start with number 1 here. If Alex has 2 toys and Lee has 3, how many toys do they have all together? So who has 2 toys?
Alex.
Right. So you're gonna draw 2 under his name. And Lee has 3, so you're going to draw 3 under his name. And now go ahead and add the 2 of those numbers together.
5.
Right. So question number 2. If Jay has 4 toys and Anne has 3, how many toys do they have all together? So how many objects go under Jay's name?
4.
And how many go under Anne's?
3.
Right. So now you can do your addition.
7.
Correct. Okay, let's do one more because we're almost out of time. If Tom has 5 toys and Joy has 3, how many toys do they have altogether? So, how many go under Tom's name?
5.
And how many go under Joy's?
3.
Right.
8.
Very good. So now you know that you can draw objects to help represent the amount of objects being talked about, and that might make it a little easier for you to do your simple addition.